What if a subtle change in posture was the first whisper of a mind in decline? Surprisingly, over 40% of older adults exhibit early indicators of cognitive impairment through their seated body language, often years before memory loss becomes apparent. Sadly, these quiet signals are frequently overlooked until memory issues dominate. Today, we'll explore 7 unusual ways of sitting that might suggest the early stages of cognitive decline, potentially years before it's widely recognized. Recognizing these subtle shifts early could empower you to seek timely support for someone you care about. Let's take a closer look. Number 1, becoming unusually still while seated. Approximately 3 years prior to her diagnosis, 71-year-old Eleanor began displaying an unsettling stillness when sitting. She would settle into a chair, gaze into the distance, and remain almost completely motionless, even amidst lively conversations and activity. Initially, her son attributed it to fatigue, but as time passed, this stillness seemed intertwined with increasing confusion. One afternoon, Eleanor sat so rigidly for such an extended period that when asked if she was all right, she didn't respond, instead staring intently at an empty corner of the room, convinced her childhood friend was present. This incident prompted her family to seek medical advice, leading to a diagnosis of early-stage dementia. Experts note that prolonged periods of immobility while seated, lacking typical shifts, stretches, or reactions to the environment, can be one of the earliest indicators of neurological changes. As cognitive decline progresses, the brain's capacity to transmit signals for movement diminishes, resulting in the body becoming trapped in unnatural stillness for longer durations. This apparent tranquility isn't merely physical. It can be a visible manifestation of certain brain regions beginning to lose function. What might appear as simple resting could in fact be a silent sign of underlying neurological deterioration. Number 2, consistently sitting at the very edge of chairs. About 4 years before he received his diagnosis, 78-year-old Arthur developed a peculiar habit of perching precariously on the edge of chairs, barely seated and seemingly on the verge of falling. Initially, his family dismissed it as restlessness or discomfort, but the behavior intensified over time. His balance became so precarious that he once nearly tumbled off his chair during a family gathering, later explaining that he felt the need to be ready to escape the unfamiliar surroundings. This alarming incident motivated his family to pursue a comprehensive medical evaluation, which resulted in a diagnosis of a neurodegenerative condition. Research suggests that unusual seated postures, such as consistently sitting on the edge of chairs, can be a subtle indicator of early cognitive changes affecting spatial awareness and the perception of safety. As cognitive function declines, the brain's ability to accurately judge distances, maintain balance, and execute simple movements can be impaired. Consequently, an individual might unknowingly position themselves in unstable and unsafe ways that are incongruent with their environment. What might be perceived as mere fidgetiness could actually be an early signal of compromised brain function. Number 3, frequently twisting or contorting legs while seated. Approximately 5 years before her diagnosis, 69-year-old Margaret began sitting in noticeably awkward and uncomfortable positions. She would tightly cross her legs, wrap them around the legs of the chair, or even sit sideways with one foot tucked beneath her opposite thigh. Initially, her daughter thought it was just a nervous habit, but it became increasingly pronounced. On one occasion during a social event, Margaret sat in such a twisted position that she experienced numbness in one leg and later insisted that someone had moved it without her knowledge. This unusual episode prompted her family to seek neurological testing, which ultimately led to her diagnosis. Experts affirm that distorted or uncomfortable sitting postures can be an early indication of brain changes associated with cognitive decline. As the brain's motor control and body awareness systems begin to deteriorate, individuals may unknowingly adopt twisted, unnatural sitting positions without recognizing the abnormality. This deviation from normal posture isn't solely a physical change, but can signal the onset of neurological impairment. What might appear as harmless fidgeting could be an early, subtle communication from the brain. Number 4, exhibiting constant shifting or adjusting while seated. Roughly 2 years before his diagnosis, 73-year-old Robert displayed an inability to remain still while seated during family gatherings. He would frequently shift his weight from side to side, cross and uncross his legs, adjust his clothing, and reposition himself in his chair repeatedly, even when there was no apparent reason. Initially, his son jokingly attributed it to aging restlessness, but over time, this fidgeting seemed connected to increasing disorientation. One evening, Robert stood up abruptly in the middle of a friend's home, insisted they were in the wrong house, and refused to sit back down. This incident prompted his family to seek professional help, and doctors confirmed a diagnosis of early cognitive decline. Studies indicate that persistent, seemingly aimless movements such as fidgeting, adjusting clothing, and shifting posture while seated can be an early warning sign of cognitive impairment. As cognitive decline affects impulse control and sensory processing, the brain struggles to maintain a comfortable and still physical state. What might seem like simple restlessness could be a subtle indication of underlying neurological challenges. Number 5, consistently slouching significantly while seated. Around 2 years before her diagnosis, 81-year-old Helen began to slump noticeably in chairs, despite having always maintained good posture. Initially, her husband teased her gently about becoming less attentive to her posture, but the slouching became more pronounced over time. She would sit with rounded shoulders and a forward-drooping posture, sometimes so low in her seat that it appeared she might slide off. One afternoon at a community meeting, Helen slouched so severely that she didn't recognize a close acquaintance sitting directly across from her. This prompted her family to seek a comprehensive medical evaluation, and she was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative condition. Research suggests that sudden changes in posture, such as persistent and significant slouching, can indicate changes in the brain's motor control centers. As cognitive decline progresses, it can weaken the systems that govern body awareness, balance, and even the ability to maintain an upright posture while seated. What might appear as mere fatigue could be an early outward sign of developing cognitive impairment. Number 6, frequently resting head in hands or staring blankly while seated. Approximately 2 years before her diagnosis, 70-year-old Samuel began sitting with his head resting in his hands for extended periods. He would lean forward, elbows on his knees, face obscured, and remain in this position even during family conversations. Initially, his daughter thought he was simply tired or contemplative, but this behavior became increasingly concerning. One afternoon, Samuel sat in this withdrawn posture throughout an entire celebration, barely interacting with anyone. When someone tried to engage him, he responded with confusion about where he was. This incident prompted his family to seek a thorough evaluation, and doctors diagnosed Samuel with early cognitive decline. Research supports that prolonged episodes of blank staring, head hanging, or a withdrawn posture while seated can be an early indicator of cognitive impairment. As cognitive decline affects emotional and social processing, the brain's ability to remain engaged with its surroundings can be diminished. What might appear as deep thought or fatigue could be one of the earliest subtle signs of compromised brain function. Number 7, experiencing difficulty sitting down properly. About 5 years before his diagnosis, 76-year-old Walter began to struggle with the seemingly simple act of sitting down normally, despite having no physical injuries. He would hover awkwardly over chairs, misjudge the distance to the seat, or lower himself with an unusual degree of uncertainty. Initially, his son attributed it to normal aging, or perhaps a touch of arthritis, but over time, this hesitation evolved into more pronounced confusion. One afternoon, Walter froze partway through the act of sitting, appeared frightened, and asked, "Am I going to fall?" This incident prompted his family to seek immediate medical attention, and he was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative condition. Studies suggest that difficulty judging spatial relationships and body positioning, even for basic actions like sitting, can be one of the initial physical clues that cognitive decline is beginning. As the brain's spatial awareness and coordination centers weaken, everyday movements can become strange, slow, and uncertain, even the initiation of sitting. What might seem like clumsiness could be an early warning sign of significant cognitive changes. The initial signs of cognitive decline aren't always what we expect. They can manifest in subtle changes in how someone sits. Early recognition could potentially alter the course ahead.